Good morning, class. Trust you're all doing well. Um, we about to start our class. Last week we discussed qualitative data analysis, and then today I remember we went through mouse and humans data analysis technique, which emphasized that data analysis starts from the time we start collecting data, then goes to data condensation, data display, and then verifying and then determining conclusions. So what we're going to do today is to go ahead and look at other qualitative data analysis techniques. Now, what I taught you in Mouse of Human One is a technique that can be used alongside other techniques. I think next week what I'll do is that I'll try to show you how the techniques matrix, how people, different authors bring different techniques together and use them to write. But as of now, I'm trying to show you the different techniques, and so that when you read somebody's paper and say he's using pattern matching, he's using thematic analysis, you can actually be able to understand what the person is doing. Can understand what the person is doing. Okay, so today I'll look at pattern matching and then thematic analysis. But I want you to also know that some of the techniques also draw from other techniques which are more broader. That means that some techniques don't subscribe to a particular one. Some authors draw different techniques to develop their own techniques. For example, when you are doing, when we're going through Mouse of Human Managers and last week, we talked about a section in which we looked into um, testing and then and confirming meanings. And when we're talking about that, I talked about looking for patterns. So somewhat you are going to do pattern matching in a little bit of that in mouse and humans techniques for data analysis. So because they use plurality of methods, and you also end up using things like cross case analysis or within case analysis, so, which are also techniques which have been put across. So you realize that some of the techniques kind of support other techniques to be able to uh, reuse. So in using this particular technique proposed by this author, you end up using other techniques that are more fundamental. So there are fundamental techniques. One of them is cross case analysis or within case analysis that you can use whilst you are doing thematic analysis, while you can use whilst you are doing pattern matching. But what is important is understanding these methods so that you can be able to know our techniques, so that you can be able to apply them to your work. Apply them to your work. Okay. So I thank you very much for joining me today. Let's start the class. You are only 19. I always want to get to about 30, 32, 33 and above before I start. But I realize we're having a slow morning this today. Let's just start. I can see Yvonne nudging me that she has a birthday party today, so I have to start early. Okay. Anyway, so our objective today is to look at two techniques and then another ones that we'll go into pattern matching and cross case analysis. We are still using our book, Boateng um, Research Made in 2020 edition. That has a very an updated section on data analysis. I think every year what I've made up my mind is that our since analysis tends to be a very core area in research, I will always be updating that section so that students will have understanding of different techniques and how to apply them easily to their thesis. So let's look at pattern matching. Pattern matching is drawn from the perspective of um, a qualitative researcher who seeks to be doing theory testing, especially if the person want to test how test a theory that has been postulated in literature. He or she could use pattern matching as a method to do that. Now, the very different simple definition of pattern matching analysis is a form of data analysis technique that involves comparisons of two patterns to determine whether they match. So very, very simple. I know authors like Hack and Dahl and then Jin. Jin is one of the key proponents of pattern matching. So if you are looking for Yin's book on case study, you see that he has a whole section explaining what pattern matching is. So if the patterns match, the internal reliability of the study is enhanced. Remember what we were talking about, internal reliability. Internal reliability. Remember when I was teaching you how to do and write case studies. I talked about internal reliability. Those of you who don't remember, I want to take us back to that place so that we can look at it. Remember, we're looking into, yeah, okay, good. Internal, okay, so let's look at it here. Um, we are, oh, sorry, okay. Good. So the internal reliability of the case is enhanced. So what do we mean by internal reliability of the case is enhanced? What we mean is that you look at it, reliability, use case study protocols, and then you also use, you develop a case study database. But what is in reliability? Reliability demonstrates that the operations of a study, such as data collection procedure, can be repeated in the same results. Now you have internal validity, means that seeking to establish a causal uh, relationship where by certain conditions are believed to lead to other conditions. So when we compare our findings with that particular pattern and we get it to be true, then we realize that internally what we saw, the pattern we are seeing there is confirmed by the theory. Or we can say that the case itself or the phenomenon we are studying itself aligns itself or can be better explained by the theory or can be well explained by the theory, by the theory that we are using. When your theory that is a poor fit to the findings you have, it could be two things. Either the theory is not the best, has not got all the constructs and logic and propositions to be able to explain the phenomenon, or the phenomenon itself has got certain dimensions in which it goes beyond the theory. So almost the same thing as what I'm saying. It goes beyond the theory. So it means that the theory either has to be extended or has to be refuted in relation to its applicability to the issue you are trying to study. However, when you do it and you realize that the patterns tend to match, then you have found something that makes it internally valid, that this or reliable, that this measures that we said we are going to measure, we have found some evidence for it, some patterns. So it also tells us that when we actually look at the phenomenon, there is literature or there is theory to be able to support its explanation. Its explanation. So then it means that what we have found, the pattern that we have found has got its own validation coming from the theory. And the theory can explain that particular pattern. Okay. So in this, going on from there, sorry, let me look for where we were. Okay, so we're here. Good. Going on from there, what we were trying to emphasize on is the fact that whenever you are doing pattern matching, you are trying to compare one pattern with another pattern. That so that whether they are the same or whether they tend to differ. Okay. In pattern matching, patterns are evident and patterns that are evident in the collected data are compared to against one or more developed propositions which uh, were identified in the literature or found to be familiar in the collected data. So it means that in pattern matching, the first thing is that you should have propositions. And the propositions are usually well stated, or possible relationships are usually well stated before the study starts. They're usually well stated. So let me just go to our examples that we have been looking at for some time now. Remember, we're looking at this particular paper, mobiles and microtwin. Now everybody has a copy of this paper, and as of now, understands it very well. Okay, so we're in the analysis section of the paper. The data section, data measure method section of the paper, we mentioned the approach that we are using to do the analysis. So we said that, okay, the approach to analyzing the case study was primarily by use of pattern matching logic, as explained by in 1994. We sought for results that can strengthen the validity of our theoretical framework. You see, what did we say earlier? We said, first of all, pattern matching is good for testing theories. Do you realize it? We mentioned that. Number two, so whenever you are able to find the patterns in the literature, that means you have got internal validation for your theory. That is good. By scrutinizing the context of the case and detailing findings to provide answers to each of the questions. So it means that we have also realized that pattern matching starts from propositions, stating out certain relationships. Then you go out to check whether those relationships tends to occur. Pattern matching starts by stating out certain relations. The relationship may be stated out through your theory. Remember, pattern matching is focusing about theory testing. So if your theory is not there, then how do you do pattern matching? Okay, so it means that in this paper, the author should have stated a theory. So not the or a conceptual understanding. Now, what he did here is that the author started with transaction cost theory and then applied the transaction cost theory to mobiles and micro trading and came up with this conceptual framework, which was going to be used to study the world or study the phenomenon. Do you understand that? Now, in that scenario, he postulated that mobile phones will be engaged in three types of activity in trading: pre-trade, during trade, and post-trade. Those three types of activities can then lead to certain benefits: strategic, relational, and operational, and then will lead to impact, incremental, transformational, and production. So the author postulated these ones relationships ahead of time through this particular conceptual framework. Remember, we defined conceptual framework as simplifying reality by suggesting relationship between constructs. So we have suggested relationships, and then we use pattern matching to check whether this relationship tend to stand or it's internally valid or they tend to be reliable, internally reliable. So let's go back to what we meant by saying that we start by propositions. Pattern matching starts by you proposing possibilities of what could happen in the data. So we mentioned earlier, in pattern matching, we have to note that propositions matter, relationships matter. The next thing is that your relationship should have been formulated by the theory and the literature you read. Then it guides you to be able to look out whether these relationships are possible. Okay. So Al-Mutari, Ghana, and McCarthy identify three practical steps or phases in pattern match. The phases are: develop your propositions, test them, and provide theoretical explanations and developing research outcome. So everybody who is doing pattern matching should have some propositions developed from the literature and then from the theory that he may be using or conceptual framework. He goes to the field, collect data to be able to test these relationships, and then look for explanations for finding validity for those relationships and reliability for those relationships or not. Okay, so the first part. Okay. Now, propositions tend to matter. To analyze qualitative data using pattern matching, propositions need to be developed. According to Trochen, 1989, propositions or predicted patterns can be derived from either the literature, theory, or the researcher's experience in the field. So it means that when the researcher explores the data from the beginning, he himself can find out whether the relationship that is, there are some relationships and patterns he can immediately observe. Okay, I just want you to dwell on these things, and then whilst I allow others to come in. Okay, thank you. Just give me a second. Good. So we have added the rest of them. It's about 7 people. Good. So what we have here is in pattern matching, we are doing theory testing. So the first thing that we need to know is to state our theory. And we are going to, and now in stating our theory, we are going to use it to tell patterns. Our theory will tell us relationships, will tell us propositions, and then we'll use the propositions to go and look for patterns in the data. So your patterns, your theory will give you guidance on the type of relationships you are looking for. And you'll be informed by the literature or the theory. But sometimes we just want to tell you that beyond the theory and beyond the literature, the author himself can also find relationships in the data as he's looking for the patterns and see other patterns that may have not been postulated by the theory or literature and state them out and see validity for them and look for validity for them. So you look for another pattern to confirm. Remember what I taught you during coding. I said when you're coding, what do? You code either from the theory or you can code from the data. In the same way, in pattern matching, when you are trying to talk about your or determine your initial propositions, you can either derive them from the theory or literature and also from your experience in the research field as you are collecting the data, the patterns that you see. So that is the first step. Let us define our propositions, the relationships, and I'll show you one. Now, there is another study that I did in Nigeria in which we clearly stated our propositions when we began. We clearly stated our propositions when we began. Let me see if I can find it. Find it. Okay. I think I have it here. So in this particular study, we were looking at similar issues of using mobile phones among market women in Nigeria. So what we did is that we went into Nigeria and then we started the study, but we're guided by a theory called the technology acceptance model. We use that one to develop relationships. So if you look into this literature as I scroll down, one thing you see is that we also postulated pre-trade, during trade, post-trade. Then out of that, we came out with proposition one. Can you see that? That tells you the relationship you have identified. Somebody called it hypothesis. We are doing qualitative, so it's called proposition. Proposition two, proposition three, somewhere here. Oh, three. Perceived ease of use through perceived usefulness will have a positive effect on the intention of traders to adopt. Okay. And then we go to proposition four, proposition five. Now all the and proposition six, then we put them together as in a model here. We put them together in a model here. Then we align the propositions to our research question. So for each of the research question, we had our own relationship that we're going to be looking out for. So that became kind of our theoretical lens to look at our study. So if you look at the paper very carefully. So in here, okay, in here, we have why do Nigerian market women adopt e-commerce or use mobile phones in trading? This question will enable us to investigate propositions 2, proposition 3, proposition 6. Then we come to what value or benefits do women get from mobile commerce adoption? Proposition 1. Then challenges, proposition 2, and proposition 4 and 5. Now, if you look at it carefully, it means that when we go to the field, to answer question 1, we will be looking for validity for these relationships. Proposition 2, proposition 3, proposition 6. Then we go to, in answering question 2, we'll be looking for validity for proposition 1 here, and the same thing that we'll do here. So if you read the work, I think that in the case analysis, we mentioned that we use, let me see. Okay, look at it. Look at it here. Interview or transcribe, and the mode of analyzing the case study was use was by the use of pattern matching as explained by Yin 1994. This was done by seeking findings which support or if not, further explain the research proposition. So the research propositions tell us the relationships that we are going to look out for. Please don't tell me you are doing pattern matching when we can't see an identifiable set of propositions. If not, we can't even see an identifiable theory in which you are proposed certain relationships in the theory. You may not necessarily state them as proposition 1, 2, 3, but there should be something that you have discussed in your literature review that tells us that these are the possible relationships that you are going to examine. Are we good at that? Okay. Thank you very much. I know that you are very smart students. You are good at that. So if you look at the analysis, you see, it says that this characteristic of the traders tends to be suggestive of our second proposition. So in the discussion, everything that you discuss, you end up relating it back to the propositions that you have here. The same thing is what's happening. If you go on, you see that this, from the above discussion, there's evidence that this is evidence that is suggestive of the faith proposition. So at least I want you to note that there are possibilities that you can use these things. Prof, the researcher's experience in the field could generate propositions. How would that be different from data collections? Please, I don't understand what you are saying. I don't. Propositions are relationships you are seeing the data. How will the propositions affect your data generation of? Anyway, I think you should take your time and listen to what I'm saying. When you go to the field, you are collecting data. You are finished. You are collecting data. After you finish collecting data, can analyze your data. So as you are analyzing, you can see patterns in the data. Why don't you draw them out? The same way you see codes in the data, the same way you see patterns in the data. And I talked about that last week. That patterns you can see suggested relationships that you can see, either the ones that is informed by your theory or the ones you can see emerging from the work you have. So please, I think take your time and listen to reflect on the things you are saying before you ask the question. Okay. So even if you look at, say, in effect, technology adeptness of the trader in relation to the mobile phones partly influence the extent of use of the features and services provided through the mobile phone and further influences the extent of benefits realized. These interrelationships between technology and technology adoption and the use and owner adopter characteristics are consistent with the findings from previous research. From the above discussion, there's evidence that is suggestive of the fit proposition. The donor's work had proposed a particular type of relationship between technology adoption and then the owner's characteristics, that the more knowledge the person have, the better he can be able to understand and appreciate the technology. The person went to the field and saw a similar relationship. So he's saying that now what I saw in the field, I found it to be consistent with what I've seen in the literature. So now I've been able to find evidence, validity, or something that can pass some level of support to our perceived usefulness, this particular proposition that you mentioned earlier. So that's what the author tried to do in this particular scenario. So let's continue on with here. Okay. So next step 2, testing at phase. At the testing phase, the correctness of the proposition is determined. The propositional pattern is determined, or an empirical based pattern is determined. So the propositional pattern will come from the theory. An empirically based one is saying that when you look into the data, there could be other ones beyond the theory. There could be other relationships beyond the theory that you have in mind. So the question is, what does the proposition say from the theory that you have? And then what is the data also telling you? What is the data also telling you? Okay. I intended to do something for you, and I think because of the question, let me just do what I needed to do to the needful. Okay, so I've uploaded the slide, the paper I just mentioned, information development. I've uploaded it into the chat room so you can check it from there. Then from there, providing theoretical explanations. In this phase, an explanation of the overall understanding of the investigated case should be provided. That means that if you are seeking whether it is confirmed or not confirmed, and it should be confirmed either by the literature. So if you are being confirmed by the it's being confirmed by the literature, then you need to be able to point out which literature are you comparing it to, so that you can be able to say that you have found evidence to that particular pattern. Evidence to that particular pattern. Okay. So now the next one will be cross case analysis. So let me then show you examples from the literature that we have here. Okay. So we'll take this one first, the one on the Ghanaian paper. And we mentioned earlier that you are going to identify patterns. But in identifying the patterns, you are going to use the theory that has guided you. So let's go into the discussion section of the person's work and look at it. Okay, so I just want something very short. Good. So let's look at this one. I'll zoom in a little bit so that my constituents you can see better. Oh, it's too much. Okay, so we have it here. Good. Now let's look at the write-up here. Okay. However, the extent of usage of mobile phones is mediated by affordability and accessibility of mobile phone services. Concerning accessibility, the key challenges to the usage of mobile phones were observed to be network failure, drop calls, and high cost of airtime. These challenges encourage traders to have more than one mobile subscription in order to stay connected to trading partners and customers. Okay, so now highlight this thing. I want you to highlight this. Okay, so let's continue. Poor network coverage and network failures in rural areas where farms were allocated often affect communication with trading partners. Wholesalers like Grace find it difficult to communicate with customers in Accra when they travel to villages to buy maize from farmers. Hence, Grace subscribes to 2 mobile network operators. Okay. And uses the operator with better network coverage depending on her location. Concerning affordability. Oh, somebody say can't see what I'm sharing now. Sorry. Let me, can you see now? Good. So I'm using this paper, Mobiles and Market Women in Trading. I'm on, I don't know, page 10. I'm on page 10. Some of you have the paper. So let's continue to start again. Sorry about that. However, the extent of usage of mobile phones is mediated by affordability and accessibility of mobile services. Concerning accessibility, the key challenges to the usage of mobile phones were observed to be network failure. Kathy, thank you very much. Drop calls and high cost of airtime. These challenges encourage traders to have more than one mobile subscription in order to stay connected to trading partners and customers. Poor network coverage and network failures in rural areas where farms are located often affect communication with trading partners. Hence, wholesalers like Grace find it difficult to communicate. Grace is one of the cases, the maize retailer, so keep that in mind. Find it difficult to communicate with customers in Accra when they travel to some villages to buy maize from the farmers. Hence, Grace subscribes to 2 mobile network operators and uses operator with better network coverage depending on her location. Concerning affordability, the high cost of mobile phones and initial connection charges is another barrier. So now you have seen the access barrier and the affordability barrier. Okay, so traders with Grace and AA. AA is the tomato retailer. Usually purchase mobile phones, use mobile phones. They also consider top up airtime vouchers to be inexpensive since low denominations are available. Promotional services which offer reduced call tariffs to favorites, friends, and family are primarily used by most small businesses and micro enterprises to communicate with key customers. Therefore, even though some retailers earn low income, they still find it beneficial to own mobile phones by keeping the cost of owning and operating the mobile phone low. In case A, now we have shown Grace's strategies of managing the affordability and then the network availability issues. Now look at our accessibility issues. Now look at what it's going to say here. Okay, so in case A, now we're looking at case A's own. AA had to purchase 2 mobile phones, one for Jane and her employee and another for herself, and subscribe to the same mobile network. Now listen, we have seen some pattern here. All of these people are facing similar challenges, access, affordability and availability of the mobile network. Okay, or accessibility of the mobile network at certain towns. So, but what they are then saying here is that all of them use different approaches, similar approaches. One of them is using a low-cost initiative. The other one both of them are using low-cost initiatives to be able to obtain it. And others they are also taking advantage of promotional services. So what can we see here? Thus, the pattern we are observing here is that the use of mobile phone technology in trading is determined by the readiness of the actors in the transaction to own and access by the use of the mobile phone, own or access and use a mobile phone. This readiness partly defines the benefits obtained. These findings are suggestive of the third lesson or the third proposition that you have found established in this particular data. So what is trying to say that in micro trading activities, the benefits obtained by the trader tend to be partly influenced by the extent of mobile phone usage by the trader and actors, customers and trading partners in the value chain. Where is the evidence for this pattern? We realize this even in this small paragraph here. We realize both on Grace's side and on AA's side. Grace is as much as possible realizes that if she's not able to gain mobile phone access or access through the mobile phone to customers and trading partners, it will affect the business. Because of that, Grace has gone ahead to subscribe to 2 mobile networks. On the other hand, AA, who is a tomato retailer, has bought 2 phones, one for Jane and one for herself. Now she's a retailer, so she doesn't move around. It is her other employee, that is Jane, who is doing the moving around. But in Grace does the moving around by herself. So Jane has the same network as Grace, as AA, and then they subscribe to the same mobile network. And what is happening here? Both of them are making sure they are keeping in touch with their trading partners and keeping in touch with their customers. Because they know that if they don't have continuous communication with them, the proposed benefits, the expected benefits, the perceived benefits that they will gain from mobile phone usage in their business will not be possible. So we can then say that in micro trading activities, the benefits obtained by the trader tends to be partly influenced by the extent of mobile phone usage. If you're not using a mobile phone, you won't gain the benefits that you want to gain from that. By the extent of mobile phone usage by the trader and other actors, that's customers and trading partners in the value chain. Now, this particular proposition is not coming from the literature. It is coming from patterns that we observe in the data. So those of you who are asking that pattern matching, do you only use the theory? The theory is guiding you in other ones, but there are other relationships you find which may not necessarily be postulated by the literature, but you may find from the data as you are looking into. Because if you look in here, we have not linked it to any data, but I've seen we are not linked to any literature, but I've seemingly finding relationship between the two different cases. So one case is has established a pattern. The other one is confirming the pattern. Okay. Now let me talk about another one that you see the literature coming close to telling us what the relationship is. Okay. Yeah. Now let's look at an example. Look at this one. So this one is going to show you coming from the literature. Okay. Concerning the level of education and usage behavior, all respondents who had no formal education actively use mobile phones in all the trading and all the stages of trading. See figure 3. Noting that he said that the correspondents the market women who didn't have education were also using mobile phones. That's interesting. So you have to ask yourself questions about that. Noting that the number of respondents with no formal education was only 13% of the sample, it is inconclusive to suggest a significant impact on education mobile phone usage. Do you understand? The number is too small for you to do a statistical test of significance here. So let's continue. Now, however, the innovative use of mobile phones, use of calculators in trading was observed. 12 out of the 18 traders with no formal education claimed to use calculators in trading activities. primarily in post and during trade activities. 8 of the 18 traders with no formal education also claim to use text messaging in contacting trading partners and customers. This ability to identify basic functions in the mobile phone and integrate them to trading activities is arguably a function of some level of education and perceived ease of using the mobile phone they obtain. On further inquiry, now you are looking at what is very interesting. In Mouse and Huberman, we learned last week that follow-up spurious relations, follow up do if then test, or follow up things that just show up from the data. What I mean by follow up is that put them under a critical evaluation to check whether there is some truth in there before you go and make a conclusion about it. So it goes as on further inquiry, on my follow-up. You see, the way you write your analysis and your discussion, this is a discussion section actually, which is combining both the analysis and discussion. The way you write it out is to try to tell us your thought process, the analytical process that you end up coming up with certain conclusions. Then when you find out something interesting, you compare them to literature. That's what we call discussion. So in the analysis phase, you are teasing out what you can find from the data. Then in the discussion phase, you are now comparing what you have found in the data with other patterns in the data and with the literature. Okay, now that's just by the way. So on further inquiry, these traders intimated that they often receive help from their friends, children, relatives, and sometimes customers in learning some basic functions of mobile phone, especially with simple text messages, calculators, and the use of calendars as reminders. The ease of use was influenced by the mobile literacy of these traders, which stem from informal education or knowledge dispersion through social network. Look at the analysis level. It is not just coming. The person is, these things are coming from either one, the informal education or knowledge dispersion through social networks. Those of you who know knowledge dispersion very well and who know transaction cost theory very well, note that knowledge dispersion is a characteristic in transaction cost theory. So as soon as you see that it's knowledge dispersion that is causing the social networks to, that is flowing through social networks, you know they have found some evidence for transaction cost theory. Now, knowledge dispersion through social networks, however, iterates the blurred distinctions between social and productive spheres of using mobile phones and using the blurred distinctions in adoption and the usage of mobile phones. And this is Rangaswamy and Nair's paper. Now, Rangaswamy and Nair, just to be able to give you some benefit of the doubt, you can go to our references and then check. I've quoted Rangaswamy and Nair. Rangaswamy and Nair, mobile phones ecology in Mumbai slum communities networks for enterprise. Now, what they try to talk about is that he and another person called, Amin Zuma. These people argue about the fact that there are blurred distinctions between the business use of mobile phones and then the social use of mobile phone. That sometimes through the social use of mobile phone, you gain skill sets that can be applied in the business use of mobile phone. So I just want to let you see that argument that was being put across. So Rangaswamy is saying that the business spheres and social spheres of mobile phone users is what is blurred. Now, these findings, the findings I've talked about plenty here, are suggestive of the first lesson. The innovative use of mobile phones in micro trading is influenced by pre-knowledge of the trader, which may have been developed through formal education and social networks. Now, where is this particular conclusion coming from? It is coming from the data, and then it's also coming from the literature. It is coming from the data, and it's also coming from the literature. Two patterns have been confirmed, one from the literature, one from the data. Hence, we can put this across in here. So, pattern matching means that you have a model, a proposition, which may be spelled out through your model, through your research framework, or your computational framework. Then you go to the field and then you look for relationships that will actually confirm what you have. But there could be, alert yourself or allow yourself to see that there could be other relationships and data which can inform what you are doing. Now, let's go to a paper that actually used stated propositions explicitly and then went into the literature to find evidence for those propositions. Okay, so now we go back. Okay, okay, okay. Go back, we go back, we go back, we go back. Good, 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 good. So this is a paper on mobiles and micro trading in Nigeria. And then we use pattern matching. So we are going to look at how, okay, we find evidence for one of the propositions. So let's look at this. Listen to me very carefully. In reference to our third research proposition, we do identify traders opting for mobile phones, which are not only easy to use, but comparably less expensive. We saw the same thing in the Ghana case. This is evident in the case of Binta and the case and Hajia. Hence, the traders in the study tend to adopt the part of least cost of adoption in terms of the cost of acquisition and the cost of usability. Cognitive and economic accessibility are argued to be influenced by both the efforts of the consumer and by the extent to which mobile phone manufacturers manage to keep the effort required of users as minimum. Now, cognitive is an amount of knowledge that you need to be able to access a particular device. That's it. Economic access is your financial ability to be able to afford the device or even maintain the device financially. So it's trying to tell you that one, cognitive and economic accessibility is influenced by the efforts of the consumer and then the relative ease of use as defined by the manufacturer for the phone. The findings in the study suggest that the part played by consumers, not the manufacturers, because we didn't collect data on it. This is very interesting. So here he actually established a preamble from the literature saying that the cognitive and economic accessibility are argued to be influenced by both the efforts of the consumer and the extent to which the mobile phone manufacturers manage to keep the effort required of users at minimum. But in this study, we find in the findings in the study give us evidence or suggest the part or played by traders as consumers. They adopt measures to reduce their economic and cognitive accessibility barriers in acquiring and using mobile phones. Hence, we find evidence to suggest that perceived ease of use through perceived usefulness maybe have a positive effect on the intention of traders to adopt mobile commerce during the pre-adoption stage. Interesting. What are we seeing here? We are seeing that the person has postulated this particular relationship in the beginning. And after postulating the relationship in the beginning, we came here so let's go to the beginning. Some of you who don't trust that the person did it. So let's go back. So this person did it here. Proposition 3. Okay. Look at it. Perceived ease of use is an individual assessment of the extent to which interaction with a specific technology is free of mental effort. So you see cognitive effort, remember here. David, 1989, argued that self-efficacy is one of the means by which perceived ease of use influences behavior. Applied to mobile commerce, now that's the theory, now apply to your work. Apply to mobile commerce, an easy to use mobile phone device removes cognitive impediments to getting information through the device. Thus, consumer develops a perception of having some control over the mobile device. The perceived ease of use also influences the consumer's perceived usefulness of the mobile device. Based on the discussed literature, based on what? The discussed literature, then the theory that we are using, that's the David's theory on technology acceptance model. It can be proposed that propositions come from where? The literature and the theory. Perceived ease of use through PU or through perceived usefulness will have a positive effect on the intention of traders to adopt m-commerce. So when we go into the data analysis and we collect data, we want to find out, is there instances where somebody has been able to use perceived usefulness, to be able to, the perceived usefulness has encouraged somebody to use a mobile phone. Then we go into the literature and we realize that there are different scenarios in which we see someone like Hajia trying as much as possible to be able to learn how to use the mobile phone and buy phones that she can easily use and she can easily afford. Look at this one. Hajia Myro, hereafter referred to as Hajia, is a potato rich wholesaler at Wuze Market, Abuja. She purchased a mobile phone, Nokia 3310. Remember what 3310 is? In 2005, her choice of mobile phone was primarily because of affordability and the ease of use. Can you see it? Affordability and ease of use. So she's removing cognitive impediments. She has a prepaid price plan. Though her knowledge on using the other mobile phone functions is limited, she finds her mobile phone relatively easy to use and can send SMS in her local language. So we actually find evidence about being able to use the mobile phone to conduct business. We have found evidence for that. Okay. That's interesting, very interesting here. Okay. Now look at Binta. Binta is on a postpaid price plan. This is the case study. We are looking at the case study. As she considered this. Okay. Please, I hope you can all see what I'm sharing now. Okay. Binta is on the postpaid price plan. As she considers, Isaac, if you are there, respond to me. And Augustine, if you are not asleep, respond to me. I hope you can see what I'm showing. Binta is on the postpaid price plan.
Yes, Prof, I can see.
Thank you, Benjamin. As she considers it as being cheaper for her monthly calls and text messages. Her husband and employees subscribe to the prepaid price plan. She uses Nokia 3315 because of its ease of use, of operation, and durability. She also finds it friendly for text messaging. So all of this is giving you nuggets of evidence of what we are going to see in our third proposition. So please, let us go over it again. What is pattern matching about? Pattern matching is about you coming out with testing theory. What do you mean by theory? Theories are suggest apparent principle. Let me take my time. A coherent set of general propositions used as principles of explaining, principles for understanding, principles for predicting, apparent relationships in an observed phenomena. Now, in this means that theories have been empirically justified or established. Your theory has constructs. Your theory has propositions, relationships. So you take a theory or you take the literature and you postulate relationships. You may end up coming up with actual relationships that you may post it as proposition 1, 2, 3, or you may show it in a model or both. After you have shown it in the model, because pattern matching focuses on theory testing. Your work in the analysis is to do what we wrote here, please. I just want to show it again. Is to do what we wrote here. The mode of analyzing the case study was used of pattern matching, as explained by each of the other explanations that exist there. This was done by seeking findings which support, or if not, further explain the research propositions. Okay, so now going back to the other paper to look at it again, I want you to understand this very, very well. The approach to analyzing the case study was primarily used by use of pattern matching logic, as explained by Yin. We search for results that can strengthen the validity of our theoretical framework, figure 1, by scrutinizing the context of the case and detailing findings to provide answers to each research question. So all of it, we have relationships that we go and scrutinize the case. to find answers to support or to validate, to establish validity for the theoretical framework and enhance its reliability in terms of using. Okay, so when you do that, then you actually go to the literature. You after postulating your propositions or your research model or framework, you go into your data, collect your data, and after that, break down the data and analyze it to look for the patterns that confirm or suggest evidence to your initial propositions. Then you can go further and see, are there any other patterns? Even though I didn't see it in my literature, are there any other patterns that can be suggested from the data? That then comes in where your experience comes in, your ability to see and know. The ability to see and know. Now, those of you who remember, oh my, I'm happy I'm teaching you good. Okay, those of you who remember, when we're doing this particular topic on theories, if you remember carefully, and remember very, very well, there was a section of your work in which I told you how our theories formulated. Then I remember going back to show you this slide. I just want to show you the slide. We said that theories are formulated in two general ways. One, from the data. Either you are picking the theory by looking into the data for relationships and observing them, or you use a predefined framework to look at the data. You can use a framework to look at the data and still look for a relationships, or you can test an existing theory by seeking to test it and seeking to modify it to study other issues. So you take an existing theory and apply it to different contexts. Now, what we are doing here is that we are picking the theory of transaction cost theory, and then we are used to come up with a theoretical conceptual framework on mobiles and micro trading. Then we took it to the field, and then we collected data, and we look for evidence to support the theory. So we have that predefined framework that is guiding us to look into the data. But we also allow ourselves to allow the data to talk to us. So we are using both approach 1 and approach 2. Approach 2 meaning that we have an existing framework from the literature review or our prior knowledge. You see, this is not, I'm not telling a lie. Look at this is also an inductive approach, which may be based on empirical observation or prior knowledge. So we are then picking our predefined framework, applying it to the data to look whether we can find something that can suggest to it. Now, at the end of the day, we are able to find evidence for what we are looking for, or to get confirmation for our theory. Now, the other way is that you could have also used it in a deductive manner, an existing theory, and then you apply it to a different thing to study. Now, somebody said there are pockets of this one to inside, because we are talking about transaction cost theory, and as we are looking through the data, we find evidence for transaction cost theory inside. Now, whichever approaches you are using, what you are doing in pattern matching is that you have propositions that you have taken to the field, and those propositions are guiding you to look at the data. Those propositions are guiding you to look at the data, and then the data is also talking to you. Now, I'll come back to this. So let's look at the second approach. The second approach is what we call cross-case synthesis or cross-case synthesis. But before I can talk about cross-case synthesis, I need to appreciate the fact that we have got within case synthesis, and we have got cross-case. Within cases, when you are looking within the cases, looking for patterns or looking for relationships and themes. And what we are done, we look at cross-case when you are comparing one case to the other. Okay, so in cross-case synthesis is an analytical technique which was postulated in literature. Both Yin and Marcel Huberman talk about these techniques. Previous techniques discussed may be used for either single or multiple case studies. Multiple case studies tend to be strengthened by explanation and conclusion made by case study research. Okay, that's Yin. The multiple case studies can be compared through the creation of word tables to display the data from individual cases according to a uniform framework. The framework can guide you in cross-case analysis. Okay, so cross-case patterns rely strongly on argumentative interpretation, not on numeric tallies. We are not looking for numbers. Remember, we are in qualitative research. We are not looking for numbers. We are looking for argumentative interpretation. as in case A, we found this, and in case B, we are not saying that how many times did you find it in case A and how many times you can case B. As in case A, can we find an explanation of what occurred? As in case B, can we find an explanation of what occurred? Are those two things that have occurred, two occurrences, comparable? That's what we are trying to say. A researcher can probe the similarities and differences between the cases to develop naturalistic generalization, not statistical generalization. Naturalistic generalization from analyzing the data. Generalization that can be drawn from the case for application by the subjects under the study or applied to a population of what? Population of the cases. So we can see something that we can look at the subjects of the study and say that, oh, the market women tend to be in this case, tend to be behaving a particular way. And that's what you saw when we're doing the mobile phones. I showed you on concerning the knowledge. He said that in this case, in micro trading activities, knowledge tends to be one of the mobile phones ability to use the mobile phone is directly or indirectly related to the knowledge of the trader, which may have been gained through formal or informal networks. Remember we said that. Okay. Now look at a similar example. So case A, Hajia is a tomato wholesaler. This is the same case. We read this one earlier. Amina is also a potato traveler, serves as an intermediary between Hajia Mairo and the rural traders in Gaza. She also sells to other wholesalers in the Wuzi market. Amina travels 400 kilometers to Gaza to buy tomatoes in the neighboring rural areas for Hajia Mairo. She frequently calls Hajia Mairo in Uzi using a landline to inform her about local potato supplies and producer prices. Hajia goes ahead and assesses the demand and supply situation of potatoes in Uzi and decides the quantity of potatoes, Amina should buy and what price she should pay. Now, this implies that if there are too many potatoes in Abuja, Hajia Mairo has received information through a network that too many trucks are on their way to Abuja, fully loaded with potatoes. She may tell her to wait for a week or two. To make these calls from a landline is cumbersome and costly. So Amina travels 30 miles by bus from a village to negotiate with the farmers. She calls Hajia from the nearest town with the telephone center. Hajia bought herself a mobile phone in 2005. She mainly uses to receive incoming calls from Amina and other trade partners who inform her about the potato market in other parts of the country. She finds her mobile phone less complex and can send SMS using her local language, though her knowledge on using mobile phone applications on the phone menu are limited. By receiving information faster and more frequently, Hajia is able to calculate demand, supply, and prices more accurately. She reduces the risk of losing money and improves her profit potential. Case B. The cost saving potential appears to be particularly great in commodities chains that are geographically extensive, especially when all trading patterns have mobile phones, thus making it easier for business transactions to be carried out efficiently with the use of mobile phone. A good example of such commodity chain is the tomatoes trade. Most tomato wholesalers in Abuja are male migrants originating from Mali or Niger, making it relatively good incomes and highly in need of long distance communication, thereby making most of them acquire mobile phones. In this case, Binta is a female wholesale trader from Jere, which is 350 kilometers from our Abuja Central. She is married with 5 children and has a tomato farm. Her husband, children, and laborers help her on the farm, which is also located in Jere. Okay. Binta's husband has a fixed line both in Jere home and Abuja house. Workers made calls to Binta from call centers. In 2003, Jere obtained GSM coverage, and it immediately became worthwhile to acquire mobile phone. Das Binta, her husband, and other traders and some laborers bought mobile phones. Okay. The research questions to guide the data collection for the analytical investigation of these propositions among m-commerce adoption and usage by Nigerian market women are? Why do Nigerian market women adopt m-commerce or use mobiles in trading activities? Which trading activities are enabled or supported by mobiles related services? What value or benefits Nigerian market women obtaining from mobile commerce adoption? What challenges do they face, and what has been the impact on the mobiles in the trading activities of the market women? So this particular framework was developed, and out of the framework, these propositions were outlined from the literature. The extent of integration of mobile phone in trading activities would influence benefits obtained and impact realized by traders. Perceived usefulness may influence the intention of traders to adopt mobile commerce. Okay. The readiness of mobile phone, external mobile phone environment, affordability and accessibility may influence the mobile phone adoption and extent of usage by traders. So all of these are stated out, and there's literature to support them, showing that the research propositions are coming from the theory and then the literature. So to be able to find answers to the case, we need to do cross-case analysis as the same as pattern matching. According to the literature, we are looking for patterns to ensure this perceived usefulness, perceived ease of use, knowledge of the trader, and other reasons. So according to the literature and then theory, people will adopt mobile phone because of perceived usefulness, perceived ease of use, and the knowledge you have. And there could be other reasons. So in case A, can we find a pattern to show that, can we find evidence to show that there is perceived usefulness? And in case B, can we find the same thing? Now, what you see happening here is that the author is doing cross-case analysis, comparing two cases, but he's at the same time also looking for patterns, if you can realize. So he's using both. So in sometimes, even in doing multiple case analysis and you are using pattern matching logic, you will end up using cross-case analysis. That's why I was saying that cross-case analysis is a technique that is actually applied to a number of the different techniques that exist there. So if you are doing pattern matching, you end up also doing cross-case analysis. So you see that case A is put here, case B, and then we are doing the comparison. Now, these uses actually lead to the following benefit. Look at benefits. The benefits that were set by the theory was cost, communication, or the model that we have, communication and convenience and impact, and then the impact on the benefits is also here. So the benefits and impact is put here. Then we say, what did we find in case A? What did we find in case B? It is good that you can use, like Mass and Human talked about, data display. You can use tables to actually summarize the data before you write. You can use the to analyze the data before you even write. So you see this one, what the author is doing is that he's also using, apart from doing cross-case analysis and doing pattern matching as against the theory, he's also doing a summary, doing data display by summarizing the data through tables. So before he goes ahead to do the writing. What challenges do they face? So each of the questions, he's doing both case A and case B, and then looking at it from the literature and the theory. Okay, so in the literature, there's accessibility issues and there's affordability issues. Did you see accessibility issues in case A? Case B, we didn't see anything about accessibility, but we found something about, sorry about the spelling here. We found something about affordability, and then we found something about affordability here. So now we can say that the research propositions is suggestive with suggestive evidence, the ones which are confirmed, but there were new ones that the data itself suggested to us. This is what I told you. The literature itself in pattern matching, and then in cross-case analysis. In pattern matching, you are going to look for patterns to suggest the propositions. This is what you found. But there were new ones which the data itself told you. So these are the new ones the data told you. It is good to summarize this in a table so that others can be able to see what you said concerning what you intended to look out for. Okay. Let's continue again. So now we have found evidence to actually change or even inform our model that we took into the field. So our model then becomes much more enhanced. Now we have found evidence. So now we have expanded here, we have expanded here, we have expanded all of them. Realizing that the adopter is influenced by knowledge of mobile phones and the level of income. Okay. So this is evidence for pattern matching and for what? Cross-case analysis. Please, Because case analysis can serve any of the other techniques. You can also have within case analysis where you study the case itself and look for patterns within just the case. Okay. Now let me take your questions on pattern matching as before I move on to thematic analysis. Please let your questions be coming now. Send your questions in now. Okay. Send your questions now. Okay. So it's either the students are asleep or they didn't understand anything, or they understood so well that they don't have any questions. Patrick, where's your question? Patrick, what is your question? Or you are not there anymore? Hey, now that I mentioned his name, he's pretended that he's not there. Okay. Anyway. Reginald, you shouldn't ask me this question. You are just asking a question just to talk. They are the same thing. One is stated for a quantitative measurement, hence is very, very specific in trying to make sure that the measures that are placed in it are relatively measurable. So you can't just state it like a sentence that is not, cannot be measured. And if you look at the hypothesis, the relationship is stated in a way that tells you that it depicts, it suggests, it lends itself for quantitative measurement. So it will start saying that this one positively affects this, and you can actually measure it. Qualitative, the propositions rather tell that there's a relationship between the variables. So every hypothesis is a proposition. That's what I'm going to tell you. But it's not all propositions that are hypotheses. It means that it's not all propositions that are stated in a manner that you can easily go to the field and test them. Look at the findings that we got out of the lesson 1, lesson 2. How will you go and test it quantitatively? You can't, unless you state it in a hypothesis manner, you cannot do that. So hypothesis itself in their construction lends itself to a relationship between variables. So the variables should be clearly stated. And then so it means that variables are measurable aspects of the construct. So you can have one construct having about 3 variables that can measure it. Okay, you mean that can literature alone be used to develop a proposition? Oh yeah, didn't you see the paper that we had? The paper on from the Nigerian that I attached to it, all the propositions were developed from literature. That when we went to the field, we look for patterns to suggest those relationships. It was developed from literature and theory. Okay, you are saying that yes, sometimes you may end up developing of, let me just show you an example. I don't like talking without evidence. So let me see. Okay, let me go back to our slide here. Okay, so right now look at this one. Look at number 4. The readiness of the external environment, affordability and accessibility may influence mobile adoption and the extent of usage by traders. This is a proposition, but it's not a hypothesis, number 1. Number 2, this is from the literature. Look at the literature that was used. It is not from the theory. All the ones that have perceived usefulness perceived are all from the theory. The extent of the integration of mobile phone to micro trading is coming from the theory. Sorry, coming from the literature from Jaguar, not from the theory. The ones which are the theory are the ones which have got theoretical constructs in them. Perceived usefulness, perceived ease of use, perceived usefulness. So 1, 2, 3 are theory, 1, 2 are literature. Have you gotten it? My brother. Reginald, is it clear now? Let me know. Reggie, is it clear now? He's going to sleep. Oh, okay. Let me continue. The next question. Please, this is case study selection. So if you say the case you have said you are studying a similar phenomenon, so it's better your case have the similar phenomenon. I won't say settings. I don't want use the settings is a very broad terminology, and I don't want to use that one there. But they should study the same phenomenon. If you look at the case we're comparing, one was selling tomatoes, another person was selling potatoes. Sometimes one is selling tomatoes, another person is selling maize, but they are all in the same phenomenon, micro trading. So please, micro trading around market women. So it is important that you look at the phenomenon. Okay. Said does case analysis relate to individual respondents? Yes. But you can't compare quotation for individual respondents. Individual respondents are the ones that you put their story together to develop your case. Can we conclude that pattern matching is suitable for a single case, whilst cross case? No, Katie, you are getting confused. Pattern matching is what we don't you see that all the papers are using pattern matching? All the papers are the two papers I mentioned, they have got the multiple cases in it. Cross-case analysis is a technique within other techniques. Don't go and say it is not a technique on its own. Because you can't use that on its own to determine, to look at, to come out to theorize. Cross-case analysis means that you have got case A and case B and you're just comparing. But what are you comparing? Are you comparing themes? That is thematic analysis. Are you comparing patterns? That is pattern matching. Both of them means you are comparing. But are you comparing themes or are you comparing patterns? In Miles and Huberman's technique that we looked at last week, we compare both. But in pattern matching, you compare patterns. In thematic analysis, you compare themes. Kefi, are you hearing me? So the themes can be generated internally from the case, from one case, and then can be cross analyzed by comparing it to another case. So cross-case analysis is a pluralistic technique. It can serve many people, different people. Are we good? Katie, are we good? Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay. Oh, please touch on the difference between models and theory again. Oh, Mausi. We are going to watch the video on theory and Mausi. This one there. Deal with you. Minpa fine. I'm begging you. This one. I have taught this thing several times and explained this thing to you guys in your own video, your own things. Now see, I don't know where to start from because if you watch the video, I explained this. I took my time to explain it. Please, the research framework is your frame for the research. Some people will call it a research model. It's still a frame for your research. Now, somebody may call something a research, a theoretical model, but he's talking about a model and a framework tend to be the same in its fundamental sense. But when you are actually looking at the level of theorization, that's when the differences come. As of now, people use internet interchangeably. You are not looking at them as level of what's the name? Theorization. When you are looking at the level of theorization, the highest is what we call the theory. And from the theory tells you the relationship that may exist, that may be used for as principal of explanation. Below the theory, I've got a framework. That means that somebody has looked at the literature to come up with suggested relationships in order to frame an understanding that will work concerning a phenomenon. That's why it's called framework. Oh my God, this is interesting. So the person looks at the literature and even looks at other theories and then combines them in a manner to frame an understanding that will help us to able to work the phenomenon of study. So that's why we call them framework, the theoretical framework based on the theoretical discussions in the literature. But the theory itself is the relation suggested. general propositions, which are coherent set of general propositions, which are used as principles for explaining. So the theory is set and is verified and empirically established. Then sometimes others also postulate a framework based on theories and literature that exists already. Then below that one, we have the research model. The research model, I won't say research, we have a model. I don't call it research model. When you put research model, it's the same as research framework. Model. The model is sometimes what we call concepts that have been put together, but with not much theoretical depth. Concepts that have been put together that with not much theoretical depth. So I can say that this is the model of banking in Ghana. We have got commercial banking and then private banking. It's a model that I've explained, but it's not based on any theoretical depth. Do you understand me? Then below the model, you have also got a concept. Concepts are, I don't know, concepts are phenomena, a conceptualization of a phenomenon that can be used for explaining other things. So somebody say information poverty is a concept. Somebody says, what's the name? The ripple effect is a concept. So, but they are used for explaining. You see, all of them are used for explaining, remember, but it's the depth of theorization, the depth of literature grounding that makes them different. All of them are used for explaining. All of them are used for explaining, and then are used for defining, and are used for Mousy, please forgive me. Let me just open a slide for you because I just want to make sure that my sister Mousy understands. So, Mousy, look at the definition of theory here. So, coherent set of general propositions used as principle for explaining, understanding, and predicting what apparent relationships on certain observed phenomena. Okay. So this is the theory stage. When you get to the framework stage, the theoretical framework stage, what you're trying to say is that people have realized that there is not one theory that kind of explains the apparent relationships of observed phenomena. So they draw on literature and a theory to actually theorize how something will come together. And they test it after some time, it's established. So somebody will say that a theoretical framework is a schematic diagram for a theory. That's what some people will say, but it all depends on the level of understanding. So a framework can be conceptualized based on the theories and the literature that exist, and then can be tested. Then you have the model. The model is not necessarily based on literature. It's just based on observations or understandings that can, observations that can help us understand. So somebody says that they have commercial banking, I've got retail banking. These are different types. These are a model for explaining the different types of banking in Ghana, but it's not based on theory. But it can be used for as a principle for explaining. That's what I'm trying to say. Then you have concept. Concept too may not be very well based on theory. It can be based on a social occurrence, an observed phenomena, like ripple effect. When you drop a stone into water, the ripple that is an observation you have seen in society, and it seems to be there, but it can be used as a concept. Information poverty, a concept. There's so many different types of concepts that exist, but concepts can be used to explain phenomena. Good. Then you have what we call categories. Categories are things that people do, are loosely based concepts that have been put together or put together to be able to explain something. So we can have categories of factors. So somebody has said that, okay, A, B, C, D together come together to explain something. So let me give an example. Somebody who call in marketing, I've got the 3 C's of marketing: convenience, cost, and then convenience, cost, and communication. Now these are just categories. They're just convenience, cost. They are put them together and they are being used to explain something. But later on, when these things get a more theoretical depth, they move from whichever the down level and get to the framework level. So the more, if I'm able to theoretically explain what branches banking and do a model it out for you to understand. Then you can see that, oh, okay, this is how it works out. So please, the names themselves have got their meanings in terms of each level of theorization, but sometimes they are used interchangeably without focusing on the level of theorization. So somebody can say, this is my research model. Somebody say, this is my research framework. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. This is a conceptual model. This is my conceptual framework. It's the same thing. But when you put conceptual before them, it's a different thing from when you say it is theoretical. Conceptual means that you are conceptualizing the relationships and taking them to the field to go and test them. So most often than not, when people state conceptual framework, the next thing you see is their methodology. If you think I'm lying, check all the papers I've been reading. As soon as conceptual framework comes, the next thing you see, let me know, I won't even do qualitative. Let me just show you quantitative. Qualitative, you say, oh, it is true. Let me just show you quantitatively. You see, this is why I didn't want to touch it. As soon as I touch this area, I have to flow and flow and flow in the area for people to understand. Okay. Okay, so look at this. There is a paper I am showing here called Using the Theory of Planned Behavior to Understand Brand Lab. So this is a theory of planned behavior. The person is used to understand Brand Lab. The theory of planned behavior. Now look at how this happening here. Conceptual background. My concepts and how they support my work. Listen carefully. My concepts and how they support my work. Number one, brand love is one concept. He puts it there. Number two, brand forgiveness. Okay. Then number three, he goes on to talk theory of planned behavior. He explains the theory. Then he's integrating the theory of planned behavior. Stating the theory is not enough. You have to integrate the theory of planned behavior to understand brand love, because you want to use it to understand brand love. This is how your thesis is done. You have your concepts and then you bring the theory into the concepts. Okay. Then he end up developing hypothesis. So you see that out of the integration, now hypothesis 2, hypothesis 3, hypothesis 4. Okay. Then when he finishes it, he end up going to, now look at it. The following research model, the research model is the same as the research framework. It's a model of the research, a guide for the research. The model tells you the factors that have been put together to be able to use to study the phenomenon, to work the phenomenon. Okay. And it's conceptual at this stage. The model is tested using the following with the help of an online survey. Now look at it. Proposed research model. When you say the word proposed research model, it means that this is my conceptual framework. Why? Because, please, Mausi, give me a second. I should say which paper. You people should learn to download papers. I'm not sharing this paper. Go and find it yourself. It's called Using Theory of Planned Behavior for this. Always I come and share papers. None of you have brought me a paper that, oh, Prof, I found this and I'm going to share with you. I expected people like Reginald and Patrick and this lady, Yvonne, to, oh, Prof, we saw this paper, which we thought it helps to explain what you have said. We want to share with you. You have not shared. Go and share. If you share me a paper, I also share this paper with you. Okay. So now this paper, you see, this is attitude, subjective number. It's all coming to brand love. So then this is coming from the theory of planned behavior. Now look at what he said. Proposed research model. Now, Mausi, a second. Let me just show you something that maybe you have forgotten. When you look at what I taught you on theory, that's why I say watch the videos. Look at the definition for conceptual framework. Analytical schemes. Simplify reality to make it easier to discuss, analyze, or research on. Simplify reality by, this is coming from Fisher's work, by selecting certain phenomena or variables and suggesting certain relationship between them. So means that every conceptual framework is a proposed research framework. That's what I've been telling you all the time. The research framework is telling you what frame is a research. And because you are conceptualizing based on the theory or based on literature or both, you are then having a proposed research model or research framework. That's what we are trying to emphasize here. So when you go into this, you have this particular model, proposed research model. Now let's take another paper. Look at this one. Okay, so this is a paper on online relationship marketing and signaling theory and customer loyalty, signaling theory perspective. Now let's scroll down. Look at it. So here it starts with discussing literature review and hypothesis, online relationship marketing. Then it goes on signaling role of the firm. So the theory is introduced, and then the customer loyalty, another concept that is there, has to be explained. Engagement is explained, interactivity is explained, hypotheses are linked with the theory. Hypotheses are linked with the theory. Then we go on. Oh, okay. We go on to interactivity, online trust, mediating role of interactivity, and then online trust. So all of this is figure one presents the conceptual model for the study and the hypothesized what relationships elaborated above. Where is figure one? Conceptual model. The conceptual model. I have modeled this out from the literature. Good. It's the same thing as the conceptual framework. Conceptual framework. So we have these things coming out from the literature. So you see that the relationships are hypothesized there. If you go into qualitative work, lastly, I'm just showing, I wanted to teach something else. Now, all of you have taken my time. Somebody who is making some. Okay, good. So let's look at one more paper. This qualitative paper, a qualitative paper. Okay, so this paper is on resources, electronic commerce capabilities, and electronic commerce benefits, conceptualizing the links. So it even tells you what you are going to do. Develop a conceptual model to look at what the link between resources and e-commerce. So in the beginning of the study, please, in the beginning of the study, this is the conceptualized model. Now, listen carefully. Listen carefully. Now, there's a difference in what is happening in the previous one. Listen carefully. Look at what, this is the model. Now look at what it's called. It is called. The model informed the data collection, presentation analysis for the study. Okay. Now, figure one summarizes these conceptual arguments in a resource-based model for e-commerce capability and evolution. So a resource-based model of e-commerce capability evolution. Now, he has named the model according to the work he is doing. This is a different level. He has named the model. Now, look at the first name he gave it to. David, research-based model of e-commerce capability evolution. Boateng has named the model. Now, so meaning that there is no model called e-commerce, a model for e-commerce capability evolution. So Boateng named one, but his naming came from the theory of resource-based theory. So he's saying that this model that I have here, it is based on the resource-based theory. And I'm going to test it. So after Boateng doing the work, he came up with this particular revised model. Now look at this. Revised resource-based model of e-commerce capability evolution. This is the one that he's presenting for future research to use. So now if future researchers come, they will not call it a theory. They will not call it a framework. They will just pick the name that Boateng left there. Resource-based model of e-commerce capability evolution, Boateng 2016, and start using it. So what I can then do to turn this one to a theory in future is I pick Isaac, I pick Patrick, I pick Yvonne, coming from different fields. Start applying it to your long essay. Start applying it to your PhD thesis. Start applying it to your papers. Then over the years, you have about 30, 40 papers coming out over the years, all using this model. By the time you see, everybody comes to accept, oh, the resource-based model of e-commerce capability evolution from Boateng. The problem we have in developing countries is that when somebody proposes a model, and I complain myself too, they don't have time to pour longevity in the model. Is Isaac here? I don't think he's here. Okay. So
yeah,
they don't have
Prof,
time.
I raised this issue.
Isaac, I'm teaching and you're not helping me. Oh, my brother, please help me. They don't have time to pour energy into the model. So after some time, it goes away. But when you look at other people, there's a model called a PEM model by this guy. What's his name? My former supervisor, Mola. Let me just use Mola's work to show you something. I'm teaching. You are PhD students, so if you deviate, there's no problem. Anyway, we will continue having lectures till maybe first week in June. Okay, so let me show you. Please, can you see the word? I've opened Google Scholar. Can you see that I'm going to Google Scholar? Are you seeing that? Oh, is somebody teaching with me?
Isaac,
no, we are not seeing it.
No, we are not seeing it.
We are here.
Okay.
We can't see the Google Scholar.
Then tell me you're not seeing it. Hey. Okay, so let's type Mula.
Okay.
Okay, now we can see
Now
Google
we
Scholar.
can see.
Alamayo Mula. He's one of my PhD supervisors. Okay. And by the way, we have a new book that has been published and some new papers. Some of my students, by God's grace, our department, almost every PhD student is almost publishing every 2 months. So you can see some of them there. So Alamayo Mula was my, look at it. Okay. So e-commerce system success, an attempt to extend and re-specify the Dillon and McLean. Now, Dillon and McLean developed this model. So look at somebody trying to work on it. So it's giving, so now, one of the most popular papers, look by Mola, is this paper, E-commerce Adoption in Developing Countries, a Model and Instrument. So he developed the model, then he developed the instrument for measuring the model. This is coming from his PhD. When Mola finished this one, he published it. Then he looked at how many citations for it, including me, myself. I've cited it for my number of my papers. So if you just click on cited by, so this is the journey that it has taken place. Now look at Mola himself publishing a paper out of it again, 2005. Then some of the time, his own students in Manchester, when he left to RMIT University in Australia. So you realize that he's been published. So this one is on health services. You remember when I was giving the exam, I said I said Yvonne should pick it up, and I said Isaac should pick it, and I said Patrick. Why? Different disciplines, so that the model doesn't look like it's only IS people who can use it. That is how you get much more acceptance. So if I'm challenging you, Reginald, Isaac, and then Yvonne, if you want to develop models that will stand the test of time, whatever you have proposed, start working on it. Make sure every paper you mention the paper, you mention it. After some time, you will have 600 papers on it. People will accept, oh, Charlie, the theory developed by this guy. Oh, the theory developed by this guy. Or the name you call it is what it will stay. So he call it a model. If you call it a theory, he would have stayed. But the theory is not every, if you put theory in the paper, they may cancel it. They'll tell you that you have not tested it enough. But he's called it the model. It has come to stay. So look at it again. Adoption of SMEs, e-commerce application SMEs. Okay. Adoption here too. Another paper here. And they are all high-ranking papers that are using it. That's another thing. If the high-ranking guys are using it, it also helps you. Then this one also has quoted it. This one too has quoted it. Malaysia has quoted it. You see, it has gained maturity from different countries. So not even one country. Even entrepreneurship research has quoted it. Let's look again. Another one, information management here has quoted it again. This one too has quoted it. Now look at this one again. A model of e-banking, a theoretical model for SMEs. So he also quoted it and used it in his work. Some people use it for their whole work. Others also use as aspect of it. It goes on and on and on and on and on. Recently, one of my thesis, my PhD students, my master's student also used it. And this is a review. Okay, so to quote it all the same. What I'm just trying to emphasize here is I look at a longitudinal model of e-commerce, environmental, technological, and organizational barriers. This is also using it. It's coming from the actual work. Content validity of instruments used in IS research. Okay. So let me see. It goes on and on and on and on. Over 600 papers in that area that have used the paper. Now, you saw this, my paper that I just finished, the one I just showed you. So now let's go and test my own. I'm not saying that I've done anything bad, but I'm just showing you something here. So Richard Watson, okay. You do this thing about your lecturers. It's good that you do this about your lecturers so that you see the works they are doing. and the papers that they come up with. Okay, so let me go to, okay, so this is a review paper I did. Well, then this is my book. Okay, now this is one to look at e-commerce and socioeconomic development. Conceptualizing, like I developed a model here. People have been using it very much. So now you see it's coming here. But the way I developed the model, I drew it from other people. So it can't be said it is mine. I drew it from there, but people quote and reference me. But I just want to see, I want the one that we, okay, this is also another review of frameworks. I want the one that we just saw, but I'll find it here. My data. Okay, it's not loading. Okay, my internet connection is unstable. Okay. Wow. Please open. Okay. Let me see. I'll try to use another means. Let me find the paper itself on Google Scholar to tell me the number of citations it has. Okay. E-commerce capabilities. I lost connection. Sure. Forgive me. I lost connection. Okay. I lost connection. So I'm back. Okay. Sorry about that. I lost connection. Okay. So so the papers are showing now. I wanted this one. Good. Yes. Now look at 18 papers have cited it. 18 papers have cited it. So that's it. So now look at the papers that have cited it. This is coming from my work I did with one of my students. Somebody cited it here. Somebody cited it here. Somebody cited it here. Well, very good papers. Somebody cited it here. Somebody cited resource of value co-creation e-commerce evidence from. Okay. Somebody cited here. Somebody cited. Okay. Most of the citations are coming. Some of the citations are coming from students that I've supervised before, and the papers they have written. Okay. Okay. Somebody cited it here. Wow. Okay. So somebody cited it here. Good. So almost all of them are coming from quite a number are coming from different places. Hey, somebody in Russia has cited a paper. Hey, interesting. Okay. Is it Russia? I don't know if you know the country. Anyway, but what I'm just trying to say that I have only just 18. So the problem we have is that people don't pour themselves into the model that they have developed and so that it can come and stand. And if you want your model to be used by others, give us the measurement framework, the scale for measuring it, the scale for measuring it, the scale for measuring it. Okay. So please, this is what I wanted to show to you. Let's continue with what we wanted to do. Is there any other questions? Is there any other questions? Is there any other questions? Okay, so Mausi, are you okay now? Let me know. Mausi, are you okay now? Okay. Hello? Mausi, are you okay now? Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay. Now let's continue. So let's quickly look at thematic analysis and then round up. Okay, thematic analysis goes. Okay. Ooh. Okay, so thematic analysis. Please, there are a lot of literature out there on these things I'm teaching, apart from what's in my book. So you can learn more from that. Okay. Now, we are going to look at thematic analysis, and I'm drawing from these reading materials that may be relevant to us. Okay. So what is thematic analysis? Thematic analysis is a form of pattern identification and analysis. So you see where we are coming from. We are coming back to pattern, our brother pattern again. It's a form of pattern identification and analysis within qualitative data so as to make meaning from it. A definition given by Brown et al. Says that a cluster of analytic approaches you can use if you want to identify patterns of meaning across qualitative data sets. So it's a cluster of analytic approaches. Remember what I mentioned earlier, that the analytical techniques, they lend to each other. So thematic analysis means that it's a cluster. It's not just one particular technique. It's a number of techniques that have been put together. In thematic analysis, patterns form the important component of data analysis process in describing a phenomenon under study. Hence, it has an aim of highlighting the most salient patterns in deriving meaning within qualitative data sets. Okay. Different steps have been outlined in thematic analysis by these authors. Al-Hojalian, for example, outlines 3 steps proposed by Miles and Huberman to consist of data reduction, data display, and data conclusion and verify for pattern matching. However, the 6 steps of thematic analysis outlined by Brown and Clark and Hayford and Terry are the most commonly used and widely adopted. So we'll use the Brown and Clark one. So according to Brown and Clark, you have a number of steps to thematic analysis. The first one is data familiarization. This step, this is a step in the process where the researcher needs to familiarize themselves with the data that has been collected. The process of familiarization is done through a process of going over the data alongside making notes on any preliminary patterns that are of interest. Listen carefully. This is like coding from the data. Remember, it's like data familiarization and read the data and go through, review. Usually, it's like when you do the interview today, when you go back home, you review the interview. You say, is there anything interesting thing the person is saying I can identify from the interview? So you do a data familiarization phase, and you identify and then make notes out of it. So if you have transcribed your interviews, it's even better. You can use NVivo or Atlas to be able to just put labels there. If you've got Word, you can also use labels create labels by using you can create labels by using comments, buttons, or ribbons to be able to do that, or balloons to do that. But the best is to use an analytical application like NVivo or Atlas 2.1 or a higher version to be able to do the same thing. What do I mean? The transcription is put in that as text there, and as you are reading, you highlight and then you actually segregate things that are coming up to you, that are noteworthy to you. That's what you're saying here. Now, coding. Coding is a stage of labeling the important features of the data that are relevant to the research question or the phenomenon. Okay, so look at the first process. The first step, familiarize yourself. Make notes on any preliminary patterns you find. The second stage is saying that label with respect to the research question. The first one is not tied to the research question. So you are finding things, and the things that you are finding, you label them. The first one is not tied to the research question. It's tied to everything you can see which is relevant, everything you can see which is relevant for the work you are doing. So in the first one, you are just looking for interesting, making notes out of things that are noteworthy to you. The second one, you now look for, you are placing labels in relation to a research question. Are you seeing anything that you can label in relation to a research question? That's what you are doing in the second one. More specifically, generating codes identifies and labels something of interest in the data. Through coding process, the researcher is able to identify a preliminary thematic map, which fits into the next step of the process. Okay, so let's continue. The next one is theme searching. The theme searching is a step in the process where coherent and meaningful patterns is coded in the data that are relevant to the phenomenon under study. That's the research questions. In this simple, theme searching is the process of identifying similarity within the data. So am I seeing things? I put labels there. Can I see similarities between them? It is important to know that theme searching, themes that are not hidden in the data, expecting to be teamed out by the researcher. That in theme searching, themes are not hidden in the data, expecting to be teamed out by the researcher. The researcher rather construct the themes from the data. Okay, so you have done your labels, you have done your coded. So now what themes can you see in the code? What themes can you see in the code? Then review the themes. In this process, the themes that have been developed or checked, are checked alongside the data that has been coded in the full data set to establish a relationship between them. It's also possible to merge or discard the team. This is like review your teams. So defining and redefining the team, reviewing your teams means that you are comparing the teams that you have found. Can some of them connect with each other? Are they related to each other? Are some of them not directly tied to the research question or our research purpose, so we can drop it? Is there something new that we didn't conceptualize in our research framework, but it seems to be coming out from the data? So you draw out all these things. You split some of them, you discard some of them, and then you also draw out entirely new things when you're reviewing the things. Because in the initial stage, because you began by taking notes of what is interesting to you, then you also went to coding, putting labels to them. Then after that, drawing out teams. The challenge you have is that you may come up with so many things, but you have to know what is central to the explanation of what you're trying to do. Then defining and naming things. And this is a defined and refined stage of the analysis, where detailed analysis of each team is done to determine how the team fits into the overall story of the data. Now, at this stage, teams are given definite, punchy, informative names. So some of them are redefined and relabeled or renamed, and they are giving them names that are either, in fact, sometimes more definite, like linked to the theory or linked to the work that you are doing. So you may see something and you may draw it out. Then you may put a label then at this stage on it as perceived usefulness. Oh, this is more about perceived usefulness. But in the beginning, you had a different name before you had another name. So you are building it logically as you go up. Then writing up. At this stage, the presenter or the researcher presents a detailed analysis and interpretation of each team. In writing out the data extract to tell a coherent, persuasive story and contextualizing it in relation to the existing literature. That's more about writing about what you have found. Okay, so let's look at an example. Looking at social influencing factors of riders and drivers to use a ride-hailing platform. The case study below is built on an extract of a deductive thematic analysis where a construct of the unified theory of acceptance and the use of technology model is used to direct and the coding and theme development for influencing factors that make riders and drivers adopt a ride-hailing platform. So he's saying that there's a factor called social influencing factor in the UT model. He's going to use that one to study, to examine this particular issue of why do riders and drivers use a ride-hailing platform, use Uber. Okay. Use social influence according to the theory. You see the guy who called it model the first time he developed it. Refers to how, this is very interesting. Okay, I don't want to divert, let's continue. Refers to how individuals perceive that others who are important to them think they should use a particular technology. It's like peer influence. This construct will be explored by looking at the perception of how peers or other influencing person affect the user's use of the ride-hailing platform. So title of the case, social influencing factors of riders and drivers to use a ride-hailing platform. Purpose. The purpose of the study is to explore social influencing factors that make riders and drivers to join a ride-hailing platform. Abstract. The Uber ride-hailing application, simply known as Uber, is a popular ride-hailing platform that matches driver to riders, to drivers. Matches a rider to drivers. Okay. The matchmaking process is facilitated by an end-to-end mobile application technology that links the rider to the drivers. For this case study, two sets of respondents were interviewed. First were riders who used the platform to request for driver services, and second were drivers who used the platform to respond to rider requests. Step one, familiarization with the data. This step involves getting acquainted with the data that is collected. The data for this is likely to be done in the qualitative study. Data for this study, like it is usually done in all qualitative studies, was collected through recordings. The recording was replayed over and over again, along note-taking. Remember what I told you, so that the salient points in the recording can be jotted. After listening to recording repeatedly and jotting down salient points, it was then transcribed into text file using Microsoft Word. So you see, he's telling you what he's doing. In order to strengthen the data familiarization process, the recordings were transcribed in person by the researcher. So if somebody wants to really show his analytical process that he went through, he can, especially for a PhD who is using thematic analysis, he can break down the steps into all the 6 steps and tell us what he did at each step. Now, the social influencing factors of riders and drivers to use this ride-hailing platform. Then step 2, coding. So look at the transcript. I happen to work with the organization where whenever you go for an errand without a company car and needed to pick a taxi, there was always an argument with the finance people about the fare that you come and report, so that it can be reimbursed. And so when Uber came, it became a norm that whenever you want to go out on official assignment without company vehicle, we needed to use Uber because with Uber, you can come and show proof of the fare, rider one. Look at what you are seeing, the codes, the multiple codes you can see here: organization, mandatory alternative, verifiability. So that is the codes he developed. Okay, now this has nothing to do with the social influencing factor theory. Concept that he's using. Somebody was asking a concept. Okay, please, Mousy, look at what I was telling you. UTAUT is the model. Inside there are concepts. So you saw, or constructs. So the concept he's using here is social influencing factors. So you see how a concept can be embedded within a model. Okay. I use Uber a lot, usually at work. When you need to go somewhere but the company driver is not available, you have to use Uber to request for taxi, because with that one, there is a receipt evidence to show how much the fare is. If you do not come with an Uber evidence, you will not get refund on the fare. What are you seeing? Organization again, mandatory alternative, verifiability. This is Word though. I'm not using MVivo or anything. So Word. So I put the quote here, the transcript here, then I write the codes on the side. Those of you want to use Word. Elena, Daniel, Comfort, Krebi, all of you, are you seeing it? Harriet, okay. Juanita, okay, that's a lovely name. Okay.
Yes, Prof.
Okay, so I am a private class teacher, and parents of the kids that I often teach, I teach often after I have taught and I'm leaving, give me money to take Uber. That's sponsors. So you are seeing the codes that have come here. Okay, now team searching. Transcript. So these are the codes we developed. Now we are going to a team level. Okay. I happen to work with organization where whenever you have to go to an errand, okay, that's the same responder. So we saw organization, mandatory alternative, and verifiability. Now, where is it going? It's coming from, I happen to work with an organization. So when it became a norm, and then when Uber, with Uber, you can come and show a proof of fare. Now you are seeing the themes that are coming out to support the codes that you have there. These are evidences of where the thing was generated from. So we are searching for the themes. Where did we see them? We saw it here, we saw it here, we saw it here. This is not team naming, this is team searching. So you see, try to locate where you saw these things. That's why we are highlighting that. We are highlighting all of these. Then reviewing the themes again. So we review the teams, we put the transcript there, we have organization, you have got mandatory alternative, you have got verifiability. Now we have one team here being organization, one being mandatory alternative, and one being verifiability. So we start numbering them. We have one here, for all the ones are for organization. The twos are for things to do with the organization. So the one here is the everywhere. Who is the one talking, playing to comfort? Keep quiet. Or it's not you. Okay. So you have got the organization being the entity that is doing, we are dealing with. Number two, coming up with the issues that come up with why we do it. is then coming from mandatory alternative. We label this as number 2. Verifiability, we also name it as number 2. All these are things that are coming together to tell us why we need to do it. Why we use this platform, but as tied to the organization. So we are going 1, 2, 2. Then we have to define names and define a naming and name the themes. Now we can see association with other individuals. This theme is named this way to make reference to how riders and drivers perceive others, family and friends who are important to them. The other theme that we can see is organizational influence. But we are now going to put these two. We have named them. One is family and friends. Another one is organizational influence. This one is named this way to make reference to how riders perceive the organizations who are important to them, believe they should use the platform. So remember that we said that the social influence comes from either your peers or another external body. So we can see two things coming from the theory itself, the concept. One is individuals, your own friends influence you. Another one will be an external body, being the organization. So we have seen that these two things are coming from the literature. Now we can then go and see how we can label them. Okay. Develop code, organization. Where did we see it? We saw it in team section. We saw it that I happen to work with an organization. Uber came here. When Uber came, whenever you have to use it. So we can see this as the identifiable name for this team then become organizational influence. Okay, then here, the develop code at the first level, organization again. So we have in here we have the paper. Usually at work, when you need to go somewhere but the company driver is not available, organization influence. Hey, Reginald, you are very interesting. You have found time to go and download the paper and share it with the class. Well done. You should allow them. You see, when I said they should go and find it out themselves, what you need to understand is that I want you, people don't, apart from this platform, some people don't download any papers and read. So you don't go out to actually go online to see new things that are coming out. So next time, don't do their work for them. Let them go out, go online, look for papers. You may even see, when you are doing it yourself, you may even see other papers that you may not realize. And that's something I want everybody to learn how to do. Almost every week, try to download 3 new papers and just go through them. Don't read them into detail to see whether there are fresh concepts in your area. Okay, so Reginald, thank you for doing it, but I'm not too happy about it. I wanted every individual to go and do that. Okay. Oh, Reginald has not shared the paper. Sit down, go to the platform. You see it, he has shared the paper. Okay. I have all my screens in front of me. So I'm monitoring the class on social media and also monitoring you online. So let's continue. So sponsors, look at the sponsors one. Parents of the kids that I teach often give me. So that's association with other individuals. So I take Uber to make me more professional in the eyes of my clients, who are mostly high-class people. Interesting. Association with other individuals. So you see, all these are coming from, the punchy teams are coming from what you develop, the codes you developed, and then the themes that you develop around the codes. The team that you set around the codes. And this is a punchy team that you can come up with. Now look at what is happening here. The writing up stage. So you can say riders. For the riders perspective, the developed code is organization. I happen to work here. What can we say? Organizational influence. So what can we then write? Listen to what we write. For some riders, the influence came from organization with whom they work with. These were identifiable in the team. Okay, Abdallah, you are disturbing us. These were identifiable in the sub-teams of the organizations, making the platform mandatory alternative for use of means of transportation, verifying payments, and subsequent reimbursement of transport fare payments for official assignments on the platform. Do you realize that all these 3 codes were developed and they are now being used to explain the organizational influence? The 3 codes that you see there were the items for measuring the organizational influence. But we began from the codes and built up towards the organizational influence. Then it goes on to say the Uber platform offers a much better way to make their staff accountable in terms of cost of transportation, thereby making it a requirement for their staff to use the platform. These findings are similar. Now discussion has started. This was analysis. The first part was analysis. Now look at discussion. These findings are similar to with Saleh's 2008 assertion in the acceptance of technology in the study conducted in Lebanon on internet banking that average Lebanese ready to adopt the internet banking just in order to meet the demands of the group or he or she belongs to. So he's trying to find what we call confirmatory memory in this one. It's a similar study that have used social influencing factors, and he has pointed it out there. So you have done the write-up in this particular sense. I wanted to write up, this is coming from somebody's thesis, but if I wanted to write, I would have even said that from the study in a bigger writer, I can see two types of influences. One, we can see organizational influence, and we can see another one, influence coming from peers. Concerning organizational influence, some writers say were influenced by the organization they belong to. These were identifiable. So then after that, you go and discuss the other one. So please, do you get a logical process of doing analysis and then doing writing? If you are doing thematic analysis, you are going to end up developing themes, and the themes you develop will start from codes that you develop. The codes you develop will lead you to search for where you say searching for things. Which other aspect of the work can you see the same code being shown or the same theme coming out? After you have been able to locate these other aspects of the work, you label them. After labeling them, then you look at what your theory is saying or what your concepts are also saying from the literature. It says that there are two types of social influencing factors, those with the individuals and those with organization. And you can see the similar thing here too happening here. Organizational and then association. The literature calls that one, this association, peer influence. So then you can give it an identifiable punchy name and use the identifiable punchy name to lead to your write-up. So that is thematic analysis. Thematic analysis. Any questions? Any questions? Any questions? Oh, okay. Right now, the paper you shared was what? Paper on how to develop what? Propositions. Okay. 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 Thank you very much. It's not the actual paper I was telling you. Okay. Thank you very much. Then sorry for my comment. Okay. Oh, this is a good paper. I'm doing a large body of work concerning, okay, millennials. Okay. I'm doing a body of work.
Prof.
Wow.
Prof, I don't know if you can hear me, but if you can hear me, it was on general cohorts, explaining how the.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. I'm looking at the paper. Very, very good. I'm doing a number of studies on generation. So this will be very, very helpful. But you use a leadership.
Yes, I'm also sending another one. Yes, leadership. I recently accepted of mine, which also used literature to develop propositions. I'm attaching it. Short.
And then you analyze.
This one was looking at the various.
And then did you analyze?
Yes. Yeah. I use literature. I use literature to show that it was about millennialpreneurship. Millennials have better entrepreneurial competencies than their older generations. So the entrepreneurial competencies of various generations, but there have been no clear understanding as to how the newer generations, particularly millennials, are likely to demonstrate superior entrepreneurial competencies over older generations. But there are studies that shows that they have underlying quality and competencies that's match with the preferred.
But let me just point out something. I'm actually working on it with some people on looking at developing a very comprehensive book on generational studies in Africa. because there's nothing like that that exists.
Okay.
So I think we'll bring you onto the theme to join
Okay.
the
Okay.
team. It will be very, very good.
I'm doing
Because you
actually a systematic literature
perspective.
review on generational studies and leadership.
Okay. Okay, then actually you have
I think-
made it very easy for me now. I can actually, oh, thank you very much. Thank you very, very much. Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you. I'm going to sit down and put everything together, and then I'll consider how we're going to process it, because we're thinking about either doing a conference first before we do the full document or the book, so I can get different views. And but looking at what it is, we can start with an online workshop, and we come together. We
Okay.
choose the different areas that everybody wants to look at, then we put it together, and then we go, oh, this is very interesting. This is very, very interesting. This is very interesting. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you, Prof.
Okay. Okay, please, the papers you are uploading on the platform, can you email them to me? All the two that I've uploaded on the platform, can you email them to me directly into my mail?
Okay. I'll do that right away, Prof.
Good. The paper is not here. The paper is in the platform.
Well, I think the paper was sent to you privately.
Oh, yeah. But anyway, I said I've explained why I want you to go online. And hey, Yvonne, how is the birthday coming up? Okay, the proposers don't won't change much of the time after it's doing. And that's what I was saying, Creppy. I was saying that most of the people who postulate their models, after that some time, they don't use it. They move on from it. But if you want your model to come and stay, then you have to use it. And then give us different ways of applying it. I myself, I'm a victim of that same issue. I'm going to stop that. Now, if I propose something, I'm going to go deeper into it until I establish myself as being strong in that area. And then letting people also being able to get direction on how to use what I proposed. What you're saying is true. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. I think we have covered almost all the dimensions of this, these issues. Please, let me just show you something on Sakai. Okay, so when we go to Sakai, I just want to show something here. When you go to Sakai, hey, the Sakai website is down. Hey, Yuji. Sorry, Sakai is down. Oh, okay. I didn't type that. I have to do /portal before it went. Okay, so when you go to Sakai under your course, I just wanted you to look at something on the video lessons. Please.
Hey, I can check out.
Okay. Under the video lessons, please, I have done a very good video on research proposal. I'm not going to go to research proposal teaching you anymore. Before next week, watch this video so that when I'm teaching next week, which might be our last class, we can interact and discuss this one. I will not go into teaching it. Ask me all your questions about proposal writing next week on this one when I finish teaching. So please watch the video ahead of time. I taught it and I explained it very, very well. I want you to look at it. And then remind me that next week, I should teach you how to be able to get your paper past the DEX reject section. You know, when you submit a paper, sometimes it can be rejected at the DEX reject. DEX reject means that the editor reads it and just rejects it. Doesn't let you even go for a review. How do you get your paper across the DEX reject section? Let me teach you this as a bonus. Isaac, you are writing papers, so remind me next week. Have you heard?
We'll do, Prof.
You look today. You are very dull. I don't like it at all. Okay, I know that Corona is making things different in the home.
Corona has slowed that down, Prof.
I
That
know.
slowed that down.
So take your time and watch this. Then let's discuss it next week. Especially in writing research problem, writing the research background. Because I'll use this one to explain certain things to you. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Can you find that one in your book?
It's been good. Yes.
I want to find out, can you find that aspect in your research book?
Can I find what?
Can you find what he said you should read on in your book?
Oh, no, it's not the book. I said watch the video. Watch the video. That's what I said.
The video on Sakai.
Video. Oh, okay. The book is in chapter. Good. Okay. I understand him now. I understand him. Chapter 8 is the same thing as read chapter 8. But there are some things I said in the video using contemporary literature. So I wanted to watch, especially from research background to the research questions, the end of the research question. Those are the parts I'm more concerned about. To the research background to the end of the research questions.
Okay.
But and even up to the literature review section. Reason why I'm saying that is that those of you in year 1, by next semester, as part of your comprehensive, you may need to present some things, and most of you, because of the supervisor is going to supervise you, it's not you have not yet defined where you are going. You need to develop a research proposal. So it is good that you have a proposal for your PhD at this stage. I advise you. It's good that you have a proposal for your PhD. A lot of students just walk around writing papers, but you have no direction where the PhD itself is going.
Exactly.
Yeah. I know a lot of students who have written a lot of good papers, but the PhD is very bad. Because paper writing is different from the PhD. And hopefully next week, please, Teresa and Co, remind me to differentiate what are the bad reasons for publishing and what are the good reasons for publishing whilst you are doing your PhD. There are good reasons and bad reasons. So if you remind me next week, I'll show you these things. Thank you very much, and have a great day and a great week.
Thank you.
Okay, there's no more question. Okay.